The royal family has always been shrouded in mystery, but what Princess Anne recently revealed has left Queen Camilla in tears and the entire monarchy shaken. For years, Anne has stayed silent, watching from the sidelines as family dynamics shifted and power changed hands. But now, she's finally spoken up, and her words have exposed secrets that could change everything we thought we knew about the royal family. What could have pushed the usually reserved Princess Anne to break her silence after all these years? Let's get into the video. The secret Queen Elizabeth never wanted revealed. The grand halls of Balmoral Castle have witnessed many royal gatherings, but none quite like this one. It was meant to be a peaceful family retreat, away from the public eye and media attention. The Scottish estate, with its rolling hills and ancient stones, had always been a place where the royals could simply be themselves. But on this particular autumn evening, something extraordinary happened that would forever change the dynamics within the royal family. Princess Anne, known throughout her life for her steady composure and unwavering loyalty, did something completely out of character. She stood up in the middle of a quiet family dinner, looked directly at King Charles, and spoke words that no one expected to hear. She told him that she couldn't stay quiet anymore, that there were things that needed to be said, and she was the only one brave enough to say them. The room fell completely silent. King Charles looked stunned, Queen Camilla's face went pale, and the few staff members present didn't know where to look. What had been building up inside Anne for years was finally coming to the surface. She had watched quietly as decisions were made without consulting the family, as traditions were bent to accommodate new circumstances, and as the monarchy she had devoted her life to seemed to drift away from its core values. The weight of staying silent had become too much to bear. The conversation that followed lasted well into the night, with revelations that would make anyone question what they thought they knew about life inside the palace walls. The world remembers Queen Elizabeth's final public statement about Camilla, where she gave her blessing for Camilla to become queen consort. It seemed like a grandmother's final gift to her son, ensuring his happiness and the stability of the monarchy. But according to Princess Anne, there was much more to that story than the public ever knew. In the weeks following that tense dinner at Balmoral, Anne began sharing details that painted a very different picture of the late Queen's true feelings. She revealed that in private conversations during Elizabeth's final months, the Queen had expressed serious doubts about Camilla's role in the royal family's future. Anne described intimate conversations where Queen Elizabeth worried that Camilla's past would continue to overshadow the royal family's reputation. The Queen had spent decades building respect for the monarchy after difficult periods, and she feared that having Camilla as queen consort might undo much of that progress. She also worried about how the public would react and whether the institution could survive another period of controversy. Perhaps most shocking of all, Anne revealed that Queen Elizabeth had specifically mentioned Princess Catherine as someone who truly embodied the values and dignity the monarchy needed. The Queen saw in Kate the same sense of duty and natural grace that she had tried to instill in the royal family throughout her reign. She believed Kate represented the future of the crown in a way that felt authentic and inspiring to the British people. The public blessing of Camilla, according to Anne, was given not out of genuine enthusiasm, but out of a sense of duty to her son and the stability of the institution. Queen Elizabeth knew that openly opposing Charles's choice would create a crisis that could damage the monarchy even more than accepting it. So she made what she saw as the lesser of two difficult choices. Anne also shared that the Queen had asked her to keep these conversations private, at least while Charles was finding his footing as king. But as time went on and Anne watched the monarchy struggle with public perception and internal tensions, she felt that honoring her mother's complete wishes meant protecting the institution's future, even if it meant revealing uncomfortable truths about the past. These revelations about Queen Elizabeth's private thoughts were just the beginning, because what Anne uncovered about secret deals and promises would prove even more disturbing. The deal that changed everything. What Princess Anne revealed next sent shockwaves through those close to the royal family. She claimed that Camilla's path to becoming queen consort wasn't just about love or Charles's determination. It was the result of a calculated agreement made during one of the monarchy's darkest hours. According to Anne, this deal was struck during the height of Prince Andrew's scandals, when his association with Jeffrey Epstein was dominating headlines and threatening to destroy the royal family's reputation. The monarchy was facing its worst crisis in decades, with calls for Andrew to be stripped of his titles and completely removed from public life. The situation was so serious that it threatened to overshadow everything else the royal family was trying to accomplish. It was during this crisis that Camilla allegedly approached Charles with a proposal. Anne claimed that Camilla offered to help manage the Andrew situation and the media fallout in exchange for guaranteed recognition as queen consort, when the time came. This was positioned as a practical solution to an urgent problem. The arrangement, as Anne described it, involved Camilla using her media connections and public relations expertise to help shift attention away from Andrew's scandals. She would work behind the scenes to improve the royal family's image and help Charles prepare for his eventual role as king. In return, she would receive the ultimate prize, a crown, and the recognition she had sought for decades. Anne found this transactional approach to royal titles deeply troubling. To her, titles and positions within the monarchy should be earned through service and dedication, not negotiated as part of crisis management. She felt that this arrangement cheapened the very institution she had spent her life serving and protecting. The most disturbing part, according to Anne, was how successful this strategy proved to be. As Andrew faded from public view and Charles began taking on more responsibilities, Camilla's profile steadily rose. The media narrative gradually shifted from focusing on her controversial past to celebrating her contributions to royal life. What the public saw as a natural evolution was actually, Anne claimed, the result of careful planning and strategic positioning. For Princess Anne, few things are more sacred than royal tradition and the protocols that have governed the monarchy for centuries. So when Camilla allegedly pushed for her son Tom Parker Bowles to receive a noble title, it represented a fundamental attack on everything Anne believed in. The request came quietly, presented as a reasonable recognition of Tom's growing role in royal life. Camilla argued that, as her son, and as someone who had been supportive of her relationship with Charles, Tom deserved some form of official acknowledgement. She suggested a modest honorary title, nothing too grand, but something that would recognize his position within the extended royal family. To most people, this might have seemed like a minor issue, but to Anne, it was anything but minor. Royal titles aren't just fancy names. They represent centuries of tradition, bloodline, and earned service. The idea that someone could receive a title simply because their mother married into the royal family went against everything the monarchy had historically stood for. She argued that if this precedent were set, it would open the floodgates for other family members to seek recognition, ultimately diluting the meaning and value of royal titles altogether. The conflict over this issue reportedly led to some of the most heated exchanges within the royal family in years. Anne accused Camilla of trying to rewrite royal protocol to benefit her own family, while Camilla's supporters argued that the monarchy needed to evolve with the times. Even King Charles found himself caught in the middle, torn between supporting his wife and respecting his sister's deep knowledge of royal tradition. The puppet master behind the throne. Princess Anne's most serious accusations centered around what she saw as Camilla's growing influence over King Charles's decision-making. According to Anne, this influence had gradually shifted from supportive partnership to something much more concerning, a pattern of manipulation that was affecting the monarchy's direction and the king's relationships with his own family. Anne claimed that over the past few years, she had noticed significant changes in how Charles approached important decisions. Where he once consulted with family members and trusted advisors, he increasingly seemed to rely primarily on Camilla's input. This shift became particularly noticeable in matters of palace staffing, where several long-serving employees were replaced with people who had stronger connections to Camilla than to the traditional royal household. The most troubling aspect, according to Anne, was how this influence seemed to be driving a wedge between Charles and other family members, particularly Prince William. She described observing conversations where Charles would initially seem open to different perspectives, only to change his position after private discussions with Camilla. These changes often aligned perfectly with what Camilla had been advocating for, even when it went against the family's collective judgment. Anne also pointed to changes in Charles's public persona and messaging. She noted that his speeches and public statements had taken on a different tone, focusing more on themes that reflected Camilla's priorities, rather than the broader royal mission. Perhaps most concerning to Anne was what she perceived as Camilla's systematic isolation of Charles from other sources of influence. Longtime advisors found their access limited. Family members discovered their concerns weren't being passed along, and traditional palace procedures were quietly modified in ways that centralized more control around Camilla's circle of trusted allies. Anne's allegations suggested that Camilla had essentially created a parallel power structure within the palace, one that operated alongside but increasingly independent of the traditional royal hierarchy. This structure allowed her to shape decisions and control information flow in ways that served her interests, while keeping Charles somewhat isolated from alternative viewpoints. Princess Anne's most explosive revelation involved what she described as a deliberate effort to suppress historical documents that could cast Camilla in an unfavorable light. According to Anne, this was about actively rewriting history to support a particular narrative about Camilla's role in the royal family. The documents in question were reportedly part of the royal archives, the institution responsible for preserving and cataloging the monarchy's historical records. Anne claimed that she had been made aware of correspondence and other materials related to Princess Diana that had been quietly relocated, reclassified, or made difficult to access. They were described as emotionally powerful documents that revealed Diana's private thoughts about her marriage, the royal family, and specifically about Camilla's involvement in the breakdown of her relationship with Charles. Anne suggested that these documents contained Diana's own words about feeling betrayed and manipulated, not just by Charles, but by a broader effort to marginalize her within the royal family. They also allegedly contained Diana's concerns about how palace staff were being influenced to support Camilla's gradual rehabilitation. Anne also claimed that the document suppression extended beyond just Diana-related materials. She alleged that other correspondence and records that might complicate the official narrative about Camilla's journey from controversial figure to beloved queen consort had also been made difficult to access. This included materials related to media strategies, public relations campaigns, and internal palace discussions about how to manage Camilla's image over the years. The implications of these allegations were staggering. If true, they suggested that the royal family's historical record was being actively managed not just to protect privacy or dignity, but to support specific political outcomes within the monarchy. Anne saw this as a betrayal of the public trust and a violation of the historical integrity that the royal archives were supposed to protect. The love triangle that started it all. To truly understand Princess Anne's feelings about Camilla, it's necessary to go back to the 1970s, long before Diana entered the picture. During this period, Anne was involved in a quiet but significant relationship with Andrew Parker Bowles, the man who would later become Camilla's first husband. This relationship, while never officially confirmed by the palace, was well known within royal circles and represented one of Anne's most serious romantic connections during her young adult years. Anne and Andrew had met through military and social connections, and their relationship blossomed over shared interests in horses, military life, and outdoor activities. Andrew was charming, well-connected, and everything that would appeal to a young royal who valued substance over superficial glamour. Their relationship was discreet but steady, and many within their social circle expected it might lead to something more permanent. Then, Camilla Shand entered the picture. She had met Andrew through the same social networks and quickly became involved with him, despite knowing about his connection to Anne. What followed was a quiet but intense competition for Andrew's attention, one that Camilla ultimately won. Within a relatively short period, Andrew's focus had shifted completely from Anne to Camilla, and by 1973, Andrew and Camilla were married. For Anne, this represented more than just a romantic disappointment. It was her first direct experience with what she would later describe as Camilla's pattern of taking what others valued. The way Camilla had entered their social circle, assessed the situation, and systematically won Andrew away from Anne left a lasting impression on the young princess. It showed her a side of Camilla that was calculating and determined, qualities that would become more apparent as Camilla later pursued her relationship with Charles. Anne never spoke publicly about this experience, maintaining the dignity and discretion expected of a royal. But friends and family members noted that she never quite forgave or forgot what had happened. The loss of Andrew was about respect, honesty, and the kind of straightforward behavior that Anne valued above all else. This early experience colored everything that came afterward, including Anne's observations of how Camilla managed her relationship with Charles and her eventual integration into the royal family. While the public focuses on the obvious contrasts between different royal family members, one of the most significant but unspoken rivalries exists between Queen Camilla and Princess Catherine. This competition, according to Princess Anne, represents a fundamental conflict between two very different visions of what the monarchy should be and how a royal woman should conduct herself. Catherine, from the moment she joined the royal family, represented everything that the public wanted to see in a modern royale. She was gracious without being calculating, dignified without being distant, and authentic in a way that felt both fresh and timeless. Camilla's path had been very different. Her integration into the royal family required careful management, strategic positioning, and constant attention to public perception. Every appearance was calculated, every statement carefully crafted, and every relationship cultivated with an awareness of how it might benefit her long-term goals. While this approach was perhaps necessary given her circumstances, it created a stark contrast with Catherine's more organic royal presence. Anne observed this dynamic with particular interest because it reflected her own values and approach to royal service. Like Catherine, Anne had always believed in letting work and dedication speak louder than publicity and positioning. She saw in Catherine a kindred spirit, someone who understood that royal duty was about service, not self-promotion. The rivalry became more apparent as both women took on more prominent roles within the royal family. Public polls consistently showed Catherine with higher approval ratings, and her appearances generated more positive media coverage and public enthusiasm. This disparity seemed to frustrate Camilla, who had worked so hard to build her own public image and acceptance. Anne noted that this competition had practical implications for how the royal family functioned. Resources, attention, and opportunities had to be balanced between supporting Camilla's continued rehabilitation and promoting Catherine as the future of the monarchy. These competing priorities sometimes created tension and required careful navigation by palace staff and family members. This rivalry became central to Anne's deeper concerns about the monarchy's direction and the values it was beginning to prioritize. The future king's cold distance. One of the most significant relationships affected by the ongoing tensions surrounding Camilla has been her connection with Prince William, the future king. According to Princess Anne, This relationship has never recovered from the difficult history surrounding Diana's death and Charles's marriage to Camilla, and it continues to influence how the royal family operates today. William's feelings about Camilla were shaped by his memories of his mother's pain and his understanding of how the affair had contributed to his parents' marriage breakdown. While he has maintained public politeness and respect for his father's choice, those close to the family report that his personal relationship with Camilla remains distant and formal. Anne has observed that this distance has practical implications for how the royal family functions as a unit. In family meetings and discussions about the monarchy's future, William tends to align himself more closely with perspectives that prioritize traditional values and transparent communication. Those positions often put him at odds with approaches favored by Camilla and her supporters within the palace structure. The most significant impact of this strained relationship may be on the long-term planning for the monarchy's future. William, as the heir after Charles, will eventually need to make decisions about how the royal family presents itself and what values it emphasizes. His cool relationship with Camilla suggests that her influence and approach may not survive into the next reign, regardless of how successful they prove during Charles's time as king. Anne also noted that William's wife Catherine has become something of a bridge in these family dynamics. Her natural diplomatic skills and genuine respect for family harmony have helped maintain civility even when underlying tensions are high. However, Catherine's own popularity and natural approach to royal duties also serve as a constant reminder of the contrast between different styles of royal service. The generational divide represented by William's perspective on Camilla reflects broader questions about what the British public wants from their royal family and how the monarchy should evolve while maintaining its core values and traditions. Princess Anne's decision to break her silence about these long-held concerns represents more than just family drama. It signals a potential turning point in how the modern monarchy will define itself and operate. Her revelations have exposed fundamental tensions about values, tradition, and the direction of the royal family that will need to be addressed regardless of how uncomfortable the conversations might be. The immediate impact has been to force the royal family to confront issues that had been carefully managed behind closed doors. Questions about Camilla's role, influence, and legacy can no longer be dismissed as tabloid speculation when they're being raised by one of the most respected and dedicated members of the royal family. Anne's credibility and decades of loyal service give weight to her concerns in ways that outside criticism never could. Looking toward the future, these revelations suggest that the monarchy may need to make some difficult choices about priorities and presentation. The contrast between Camilla's calculated approach to royal life and Catherine's more natural integration highlights different models for how royal women can serve the institution. The public's clear preference for authenticity over strategy may influence how the royal family positions itself going forward. The institutional implications are equally significant. If Anne's allegations about document suppression and historical manipulation prove accurate, the royal family will need to address questions about transparency and accountability that go beyond current political concerns. The monarchy's credibility depends on public trust, and that trust requires honest engagement with both history and contemporary challenges. Perhaps most importantly, Anne's revelations have highlighted the ongoing tension between personal relationships and institutional needs within the royal family. The monarchy must function as both a family and a public institution. And when those roles conflict, the resolution affects not just the individuals involved, but the entire system of constitutional monarchy. The royal family's response to these challenges will likely determine how successfully the monarchy navigates its transition into the next generation. Princess Anne's brave decision to finally speak her truth has lifted the curtain on royal secrets that many suspected but few dared to discuss openly. Whether these truths will lead to positive changes or deeper divisions remains to be seen. But one thing is certain, that the royal family will never be quite the same again. What do you think about Princess Anne's decision to break her silence after all these years? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.